Hello, everybody, and welcome to week one of the Born to Be Wild listener series. We are in season 6. The theme of this season is Lords of Icecrown, themed around the Lich King and March of the Lich King expansion. We've got a really exciting match to host for you tonight. I am joined by my Born to Be Wild podcast hosts, Electric Sheep City and Smoopy Daddy, who will be joining me to cast tonight's match. It's going to be a really fun one. So for those of you who are not familiar, the Born to Be Wild listener series is a weekly wild tournament series with a focus on deck building restrictions. There are different challenges each week that are based partially on challenges that we've come up with and partially on lore elements. And so we'll be telling a story throughout the following 6 weeks of competition plus the playoffs. And so very excited to kind of dive in and tell you a little bit more about it. So this series is played in the Conquest format. So the way that this works is each week players submit 4 decks consisting of separate classes. Classes and deck lists are hidden until after the weekly submission deadline. Once classes and deck lists are revealed, players have an opportunity to review and ban one of their opponent's decks. Ban selections are hidden until both players have submitted their bans, at which point they are revealed. In the Conquest format, when a player wins with a deck, that player must then move on to a different deck. The losing player may switch decks, but is not required to do so. The victor is the first player to win matches with all 3 decks.
Yeah, buddy. And this week's challenge is the first Lich King. So before we go into the specifics of the challenge, we will turn it over to our pre-recorded Goliathador for our lore element.
While fleeing the destruction of his world, the orc shaman Ner'zhul was captured and tormented by the demon Kil'jaeden, a process that transformed him into the first Lich King. His soul was bound to the Helm of Domination and the runeblade Frostmourne, all imprisoned in ice. Guarded by Dreadlords, he was thrown down to the land of Northrend to use the power of undeath to weaken the world for a demonic invasion.
Primary challenge for the first Lich King is called Dreadlords Infiltrate. And in that challenge, each deck must contain at least 8 demons. The secondary challenge is called Total Corruption, in which each deck must contain at least 4 corrupt cards. Additionally, each player must bring at least one, well, only one, Shaman deck, and that Shaman deck cannot be banned. And this season, we have a weekly challenge called the SCOURGE GROWS, in which the number of undead cards required for each player grows each week. This first week, there must be a minimum of 4 undead cards in all decks for each player. So that is the deck building restrictions for this week. Schmoopy, what decks did our contestants bring this week?
Sure. So if we're going to look at Azalea's decks first, which I assume we're going to do in alphabetical order, the Priest, unfortunately, is banned, but they went very aggro heavy. They brought 4 aggro decks. We're starting with like a Murloc Shaman that, once again, we cannot be banned. And if you're looking for the demons in this list, what's kind of interesting about this week is amalgams are very handy for tribal aggro. So we're looking at a very tribal Murloc Shaman that has everything is awesome at the top end. The undeads in the list are going to be Rotgil, Lotheb, and Murlocula. And in case I didn't outline it clearly enough, the demons are all amalgams, which are also happen to be Murlocs, which is nice, except for Patches the Pirate. They, all your amalgams can pull Patches, which is nice because they're also pirates. And your corrupted cards, he went with 2 low to the ground cards, 1 low to the ground card and then 1 reach card. He went for Dunk Tank for the additional reach over top, and Darkmoon Dirigible for the Divine Shield and Rush aspect. He's also got a triple Unholy Death Knight, which is once again using kind of that similar demon package with the amalgams. demons were a little bit easier to fit into Death Knight since there's a lot of, undeads are a little bit easier to fit since most of the minions that you're running are undead. And his corrupt cards are once again Darkmoon Dirigible. And in this case, he decided to use
Circus Medic.
Where is it? Circus Medic for the possible reach over top, or just let me heal one of my big 4/5s that I've made with Construct Quarters. Also worth noting about this Unholy Death Knight is it's not even. So he's building it more based off of a standard list, which I think was struck me as interesting when we practiced together. But I love this questline Paladin. He's got a questline Paladin that is topping off at 3 mana, with the piggyback imp helping to make the demon contingent, along with the obvious amalgam crew and the little tiny, like your little desk imp. But a bunch of 1-drops to complete the quest line quickly, and then just hoping you ground the value from there. Basically looking at it, 3 aggro-ish decks, but all 3 decks are going to be pretty strong into board-based aggro. If we flip over to Vaapad took a slightly different approach. He's got
Shaman, Warrior, and Warlock, as well as Death Knight, but Vaapad's Death Knight has been banned.
So he took the approach of, let me bring 2 aggro decks and 2 control decks. And one of his aggro decks has been banned. We banned the Death Knight deck, so we're going to spend more time on the other decks. The Murloc Shaman, the XL Murloc Shaman, as it is labeled on Donkey, is actually a Shudderwalk Shaman with a Murloc spine, so you get the benefits of the Murloc draw package, but he's also sort of teched this particular list out that cannot be banned to the challenge with cards like Perpetual Flame and Morarg Artificer and Dunk Tank to just sort of get more value for his board clears. I think he's really some Baleful Bankers. Like, this is a really greedy Shaman list with some Hungry Crabs. He's anticipating Shamanic down on some Amalgams. This is a control deck that looks like it is built for this particular week, knowing what the aggro is going to look like.
In particular, I really like how one of the demons in this list is Witchwood Piper, which of course is the battle cry, draw the lowest cost minion from your deck. So more of that Shudderwalk Shaman synergy while still meeting our deck building restrictions there. So I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, that's either going to grab a Hungry Crab, a Mistake, or a Toxfin. I'm assuming Patches has been summoned by then. It's funny that he actually went with Patches anyway for the draw one, even though it's not technically an aggro deck. There's so many amalgams that like you've got pirates to pull him, right? Like it makes sense.
If nothing else, it's nice to clear out of your deck so that makes your draws more consistent.
Especially in those XL lists, for sure.
We do have another XL list. We have a XL Highlander Warrior, which is one of the more ambitious lists I've seen taken this week. There are some spicy cards in here. We've got a Rivendare War Rider. We've got a Justicar Trueheart. But what I see is a lot of board clears, a fair amount of tempo, a fair amount of answers. And because of all those answers, you're going to see this list do pretty well match up pretty well into Azalea's board-based aggro. It's going to be interesting to see if they can hold on there. Last but not least, we've got a Discard Warlock featuring 2 Cataclysms, 2 nerfed Cataclysms. Now the Cataclysm doesn't discard your whole hand. Doubling up Soul Barrages with Expired Merchant probably doesn't hold the same importance that it used to. Meanwhile, Cataclysm still helps us clear the opponent's boards, which, again, the aggro in testing seemed to be very swarmy, and sure enough, Azalea brought some swarmy aggro, so it's going to be interesting to see if Cataclysm ends up coming into play there.
Absolutely. I can't wait to dive into these. I will let our contestants know that we are ready for them to begin. So if you are Azalea and Vaapad, which decks are you thinking about queuing up first?
I think Vaapad queues up the Highlander Warrior out of comfort, and I think Azalea pulls up the Shaman because I think probably the Death Knight, because I think the Death Knight is closest to a standard deck and I think is closest to their particular wheelhouse. That's my guess. That's my prediction. Let's see if I get it.
All right, here they're queuing up right now.
Interesting. Okay, so Vaapad's going with the Shudderwalk Shaman into the questline Paladin, and right away it looks like Vaapad is happy to have his 1-drops.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited
Or
to see
Azalea,
both of these
excuse me.
decks.
I see you've brought guests.
I wonder what Azalea will play on turn 1. To the surprise of no one, it is the quest line. Got that Knight of Anointment for turn 2 for AzaleaAkari to get their draw on, as well as, of course, progress their quest line.
Vaapad
Oh, wow.
choosing to coin ice fishing right away. I think fishing for the Flurgle because he's already got the Tox in hand. Now that he's got the Flurgle and the Tox, he can kind of choose to play this a little slow if he wants to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if we'll see a Bolner, a tempo Bolner this turn for
I like
a Twin
Bolner.
Fin fan next turn to get an additional Bolner on board. We'll see how
Mistake is-
Vaapad tries to play it though.
I don't hate this. I don't hate getting patches out,
Mm-hmm.
printing a River Croc. This isn't the worst play. I actually thought that'd be the first thing you'd do.
Yeah, it makes sense. It gets the most stats on board. As well as, of course, pulls patches out of the deck. Both very important.
That's a line cracker. Not chosen, though.
The undead pool is fraught with danger. I am. It is unfortunate that Amalgam is so prominent in this particular start. It looks like Vaapad is going to really try hard to greed out this Flurgle, as he should.
Mm-hmm.
As best he can. He's going for tempo, just going to lean on his hero power here. That's fine. That makes that 1/1 that trade into the 1-attack minion free.
Yeah, and especially with the additional 5 health with Renathal, Vaapad's got a little bit of extra time in the beginning to kind of stabilize and just keep from getting a ton of damage face instead of doing those like big board swings initially as well.
This might be a decent time to Flurgle Tox, if only because you've got the other Murloc in your hand in the Twin Fin for a second wave. I wonder if we see it now. We might see a bump Flurgle Tox. Okay, just gonna go for the Twin Fin, gonna clear what he can.
We'll see where that Avenge lands. That lands on patches. So especially with the biggest attack minion on Azalea's side being a 3/1, being able to be chipped away with that Twin Twin. It makes sense that Vaapad is just trying to keep the board from getting out of control while also keeping Azalea from just dumping everything onto it as well.
I wonder if he wants to try and... I wonder if Vaapad wants to try and trade in a copy of Flurgle Tox with these double bankers. I wonder if that's the line he's going for. So he's going to play this out now. And then he's got to decide which one of these he wants to banker. He's not going to play it out? We'll see. Okay.
Interesting.
Electing to banker and a mistake.
Okay. So he wants to... So I think he just... Yeah. Not satisfied that this is the board to Flurgle Tox. I admire the stone cold hands that he's got. He's really greeding this out as much as he can. He's at 28 health, so he's got time, right?
Yeah. Well, and there's so much refill with the questline Paladin that if this board gets cleared, it's going to be full again almost right away, right?
And the Scavenging Shavara that Vaapad kind of moused over a little bit earlier could definitely clear away a lot of this board. And with that Dunk Tank draw, will actually corrupt the Dunk Tank here as well. So while not electing to do that this particular turn, we'll definitely have that line of play locked and loaded for subsequent turns. This time does Baleful Banker the Flurgle back into his deck as well.
The quest is at 1 of 3 in the final stage here.
Yes, so Azalea can play out 2 1-drops as well as that 5 mana 7/7. And have that hero power just print out big, chonky dudes.
This looks like a dunk take turn to me.
Excellent choice of hero selection here.
Ooh.
That clownfish changed some things, though.
Yes, it did.
Wow.
Just the totem.
That Flurgle still being on board and still having that poisonous or toxic being able to deal with AzaleaAkari's entire board with just a 3/2.
Ner'zhul was corrupted. He can now, trade into it. But Bot is getting close to being able to tempo Azalea down from this point. Azalea gambling, he does not have the dunk tank or any way to deal with this.
But did have the corrupted day at the fair to print out another intense board. That hungry crab, while it destroys a Murloc, is not a Murloc, so will not proc the Flurgle, which has already been dealt with, so that's a moot point.
Pod narrowing this board down.
Yeah, setting up a Scavenging Shavara. Ooh, in conjunction with the Bolner.
Okay, not guaranteed to necessarily be... Okay,
Yeah.
So now we have the dunk tank is corrupted. So he had to do that to corrupt the dunk tank.
Reporting for duty.
And AzaleaAkari pushing that button, printing out 2 3/3s. Playing
the
2
Bolner
more
off.
3/3s from hand.
Competitive spirit is going to get some value here, I have to imagine.
I think that hungry crab has been looking for one of these amalgams and finds it.
Lots of good beasts you could hit off of this. You got 8 mana. You might be able to get something that could swing the game.
A very wise person once said, "The next Silverhand recruit reporting for duty's got a big booty."
Oh, thank you for calling me wise. And of course, what we knew that Vaapad did not is that secret was competitive spirit. So those 3/3s got an even bigger butt. They're now 4/4s.
Reporting for duty.
Yeah, look at that refill just over and over and over. And so the Flurgle talks like, okay, like it cleared the board. And Azalea just says, another one, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
I kind of like those trades. If Azalea did not trade there, then they were looking at taking 10 on board. And what we know, and they did not, is that Dunk Tank would have sealed the deal. That would have been 14. So they were so close. They know that Dunk Tank is in Vaapad's list. So they prevented lethal right there, rather wisely.
Yep.
Vaapad, meanwhile, is just trying to sort of tread water here. I would have almost traded into the Idiot Totem there. To preserve the Divine Shield on the... Because now this gets cleared. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't matter. It might not even matter.
Printing 2 3/3s every turn is crazy good.
And Vaapad having to use that burn uncorrupted on one of those 3/3s to stave off the damage. Oh, that day at the fair.
Wow.
Reporting for duty.
If I'm AzaleaAkari here, yeah, I'm just smorking.
I think Ravager was the out that Vaapad needed there to just draw enough Murlocs, maybe get the Flurgle, maybe cause some sort of, Murloc switch. I think
Praying
this
for
is pretty
Taunt
much
Totem.
curtains, right? Well, does the Taunt Totem matter? I don't think he can. I don't think Vaapad can take enough damage off.
I
I think it's still Exacties, right?
Yeah, with that
Still
it's now
Exacties.
Exacties. because Azalea can deal with the taunt and go face for 12 to seal the deal and take game 1 for AzaleaAkari.
The corrupted cards played a role, right? If that Dirgeable wasn't corrupted and the Flurgle was still on board, you would have seen and basically infinite board clear forever. I'm glad we got to see that Paladin deck play.
That was a player skill win there for sure. Both players played really well. Azalea just able to get there with that button, just pushing the button, printing 3/3s, the competitive spirit, making them 4/4s.
It's so fun to see cards being played that don't see play regularly on ladder. The Paladin quest I'm talking about, and what a matchup that was.
Yeah, the quest line is super. It is like one of those cards you always have to kind of consider for the listener series because the power level's good. It's just it's not fast enough for wild or for any kind of constructed format. But for kind of a slower format where there are some limitations, it's like perfect. Oh yes, I'm so glad we get to see this deck.
Yeah. So we've got Vaapad on the XL Highlander Warrior versus AzaleaAkari with that Murloc Shaman. Vaapad, of course, keeping Reno. That was such a clutch card to get in the mulligan.
You got to be able to clear a board, though. Let's see what he can come up with.
That Rancor draw will definitely come in handy later.
Yes.
And Azalea immediately just going wide, playing the Clownfish, playing out multiple Murlocs.
Oh, Murkai's a good pick. He made sure he didn't snap pick it. He wants to hide it.
Mm-hmm. The line that Vaapad has here, though, is really solid with the Ghoul here to set up the clear with Rancor on those multiple 3 health minions. That will also give him additional armor. So really smart line from Vaapad there. You can tell he's played quite a bit of Control Warrior.
Azalea kind of sensing the out and instead trading down when he might not have otherwise. Are we going to get a tradable or a tempo restaurant here? Tradable. Good idea. I think we throw out the Dirgeable. Either that or we hero power.
Yeah, I kind of like Hero Power and Sword and Board myself. Chip off a little bit of the... Just Hero Power.
I think Sword and Board kind of might tip off that you're trying to set up a Rancor, which is why I might stay away from it here. But let's see. I mean, we're about to get a very wide everything. Azalea not going super wide on the buffs because I think they are playing around Brawl, which is a smart play on their part.
Mm-hmm. Of course, with Caster Vision, we know that Vaapad does not quite have that Brawl yet. But we have Caster Vision, which Azalea does not.
I think Vaapad is able to play a little bit more, I don't know, free because of having Reno Jackson in hand, which will help. Although that old Murkai is going to be pretty huge.
It's looking tough right now. It's going to need Zeph. It's going to need Brawl. Vaapad needs outs to this board because right now, 13, Azalea's not far away.
Yeah, I love this play. I love this play. It's not quite lethal, but playing the War Leader, smacking face for 19.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Just setting the pod to 2. This is what you have to do.
This is the kind of like insurmountable board that kind of reduces Reno's value down, right? So this trade always happens. Reno always happens. But Azalea's still showing 13, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's not counting any damage from hand plus the Murkai plus, whatever else goes down.
I love the Lushwater Scout sound there.
It reminds me of Murlocula.
We're going to go in on the Sword and Board Rancor. I don't know if it gets better than this. It looks like we are. Going to try and get that we're going to gain 8 armor from this. Killing our own minion. The Scout is still up, which is super spooky. Oh, and that's
that rock
That's
gill.
a rock gill. Ugh.
Wow.
This is going to take a... We're starting to talk about, like, Zeph...
Yeah,
twisting
need
nether
some
territory, which is not a good place to be in.
You need some divine intervention right now. And that is
Trade
not
that
it.
Viper quick. Nothing to Zola. Can Sword
Now,
and Board down something.
He does have Shield Shatter in his list, Vaapad. If he can get there and then Sword and Board the Rock Gill, that helps. But he's almost stuck between a rock and a hard place here, because if he plays any kind of minion, Azalea is going to insta flood the board, trade into it, get the stats up, possibly even above the Shield Shatter, which really puts him in a tough spot. Yeah, I mean, this is a really tough situation. You almost don't want to play the Rivendare because it doesn't further your outs in any way, right? Let's pull patches. Let's draw as much as we can. Maybe we get an out from the Amalgam. Who knows? Yeah, I can kind of follow his train of thought here. It's a tough spot.
So how much damage is on board right now? 10? Is it 16?
16 on board. Murkai can get a bit. Of course, if Azalea plays the Scout into the Murkai and then trades off like the Lushwater Scout after playing the other minions, then they can get additional buffs.
Oh, an 11 attack Murkai.
Yeah, he's got to almost play around Brawl here and sort of trade down in a kind of a funny way, because anything left on board.
Setting Vaapad back to 4.
What demon gets him out of this? Let's see.
Demon or Pirate.
None of those.
No, he doesn't. No, there's no devolve in the list, right?
No.
No devolve. All right, make your Murkai a little bigger. Whack me in the head with it, please. Okay.
And AzaleaAkari taking game 2 down to just their Death Knight left. So Vaapad has isolated the Death Knight. He does know what he's playing against. So if I'm Vaapad, I probably want to run back that Highlander Warrior, especially against that Death Knight, because while it is still that unholy, kind of aggressive-ish, it doesn't quite get on board as fast as that Murloc Shaman did, providing that pressure super early. We'll see what Vaapad decides here. He definitely has a lot more hands-on experience with these decks in particular, so he will kind of know what he's looking for in that matchup better than we will.
All right, good call. He goes with the Warrior.
Oh, are they back? All right.
Yeah, they are back. So, of course, AzaleaAkari on that Death Knight, which we knew, and Vaapad choosing that Warrior like we anticipated.
Think he keeps patches here? Does not go with keeping patches. Does have the Shield Shatter in the opening hand, so I think he's going to probably be button mashing as furiously as possible.
Yes.
That being said, Azalea does find an egg and can buff its attack early, so already layering threats, which is spooky.
Ooh, and Azalea electing to coin out that skeletal sidekick for that early board pressure.
Trying
That's-
to get the felling down, I think, on the first turn possible. So hero power, everything ship face. This is a felling.
Wow.
Because normally I think you'd want to save that coin maybe for construct quarters, but again, I think this was the play.
To his company.
Then,
Thing that's
of course,
kind
What a good
Oh, that's
aggro
right.
card. You would never think to play this in any other deck, right? But like, this is gonna put in a lot of work. The piggyback imp.
Yeah, piggyback imp was attractive. I elected not to use it in some of my decks just because it is 3 mana. So like I was like doing like tiny desk imp just for like the lower list, but it's sticky, right? And look, he's immediately gonna sacrifice it. And Vaapad kind of threw Bran out there as like, all right, let me Jedi mind trick him a little bit into like maybe sinking some damage into this. Well, that helps some things.
I mean, Bran has soft taunt, right? It's scary if you leave it out. So
You can't let it live, right? Let it live. You don't know what value he's going to get off of it. As far as armor gain goes, Rancor, Frozen Buckler, Sword and Board to a lesser extent, and Shieldbach are pretty much it for Vaapad, and he really needs this Shield Shatter to be online to deal with this board. So this top deck's very important. That's pretty key. Whoa.
oh yeah.
Do try to keep yourself.
Okay.
Job's done.
Yeah,
I mean, he's still got to deal with Astalor, but that's a start.
Yeah.
bottom an extra turn, that's for sure. Selfishly, I want to see Vaapad win just so that we can extend this out by one more game. But
Same. But Azalea is doing a nice job just sort of methodically taking this down. Ooh, I don't know. Okay. Eating the egg.
well,
I don't know that there's a way for Vaapad to gain enough armor for Shield Shatter to be online. This
Yeah.
might be it.
King's face. Finds the lethal out. Zola the Astalor back into hand. Shoots himself in the face again for the easy lethal. Well done, Pod. Classy way to go out.
He fell on his sword.
well, there we have it. Week 1 is in the bag.
I've set up a group DM with AzaleaAkari to see if we can do a post-show interview there. Meowdy friends, congratulations on your week 1 sweep, AzaleaAkari. How does starting off this season with a sweep feel? And do you have any words for your opponent before we ask additional questions?
Of course. I mean, it always feels good to start off a season with a sweep. I had a blast like prepping for Vaapad. Or at least prepping for the deck building challenge ahead of us. I think Vaapad took a very, very creative approach to it. I really liked his deck. I was like looking at his stuff and I was like, man, like in theory, I built a very hyper aggressive lineup. And the Paladin's a pet deck I like to play. It was like I have built a great lineup, but at what cost? Honestly, I mean the high. I was really worried about just constant warrior clears in those games that I played against warrior. The Murlocs, at least I had my Rot Gill above the Shield Shatter, so like if something happened, at least I would have had him in live with buff. But otherwise, it felt like a couple extra clears could have easily got a win for Vaapad, and it's super nice to get a win to start.
I thought that was really clever. That you went in on the everything is awesome with only 4 Murlocs on board, and I think like at the time, right? And you just you just decided that was good enough, and was that a safeguard around Brawl or something?
It was a safeguard pretty much around just clears in general because I don't believe his deck ran Brawl was what I noticed.
Oh, I'd have to call it back up.
Oh, you're right. We were looking for Brawl the whole time, and that makes sense.
That's like I wasn't necessarily. I knew that Brawl wasn't in the deck just because I looked at it beforehand, but like Rancor giving him 8 armor was still like quite a lot of damage and other stuff like that. Yeah. The everything is awesome. I played it because I knew I wanted to kind of spike with the board I had, and knowing that I had there was definitely some other draw in my deck with the second Ravager, and there was I wanted to make sure I held Scargoal until I felt comfortable just dropping a board. The Merc guy, I quite enjoyed playing Merc guy. That was the first time in a very long time I've dropped that card on a board.
You showed such amazing restraint in not just snap picking it, because we all saw it pop up, and it was like, oh, it's a Merc guy.
It's like, oh, he's slow rolling this one. He's pretending it's not a big deal. This isn't a big deal. Let me just casually take this Merc.
No, like
Merc
I
guy
wanted to take
what,
I wanted to take the Merc guy, but I wanted to make sure there wasn't like a clownfish, like something that was maybe a little bit better. But I realized that no, in this matchup, Merc guys are really good because I can just get a big board and buff, and then all of a sudden I'm hitting. I landed like over 25 damage in one turn there.
Yeah, I think that Merc guy hit for 11 charge.
Yeah, I actually I technically missed 2 damage, I think, because I traded into 2 Murlocs on his side of the board, or 1 Murloc.
Everybody's playing amalgams, so Merc guy's super juiced, right?
Yeah, super juiced. Yeah, I realized once he played a mistake, once he played the 1 mana 1/3 mistake the next turn, that I was like, oh, I probably missed the damage trading off into the amalgam of the deep beforehand. But yeah, that was interesting. The Paladin game, it looked shaped. I was like, oh man, I have to pretty much. I was happy I drew the 3 mana cards early, but it also was kind of like it could have been 2-edged sword if I, kept drawing my 2 costs and my 3 costs. Luckily, I got pretty fortunate with such a large amount of 1 cost cards that it worked. And eventually that deck just becomes out board value with 6/6 coming down every turn.
Yeah.
Without the dirigible, I don't know if you turn the corner in that game.
I don't turn the corner without the dirigible, no.
Yeah.
Because if that doesn't get corrupted, and if you can't immediately
clear the toxic,
trade into the Flurgle just
Flurgle, I would have lost. I would have lost if definitely that hadn't happened. That or I did run broomsticks, so at least I could have rushed.
Swung it back a little bit.
I could have slightly swung it back with rushing that way, but getting to keep the dirigible on board helped a lot as well.
Both dunk tapes had to go into minions.
Yep.
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough.
Yeah, I imagine that was tough. Yeah, it felt it was like, oh man, like I'm definitely turned it, and it's likely that I just need a couple more turns to juice the board. The second day at the fair helped a lot, and
it was backbreaking.
I was able to close that one. Yeah.
It's amazing how, we played some test games, and it was just, you can clear that quest so quickly.
Yeah.
Really good deck. And it's so fun. I was mentioning earlier, we don't get to see Questline Paladin played very often because it's not normally like ladder viable. It's one of the things that I like about this series is that we get to see some cards that don't normally see play. Can you tell us a little bit about your deck building approach?
Sure. So the first deck I built was Murloc Shaman. I looked at it and I said, it's probably gonna. It's like maybe there's some like control shutter possibility, but I wanted to see what a fast Murloc deck could do. I did a couple iterations. Actually, the iteration I landed on was not what I actually fully landed on. I forgot to I kind of forgot to swap out one of my deck codes. It worked out, but I had a list that was running slightly lower Murlocs, including there's a 3 mana 2/4 that makes more 1/1s if you've played an elemental turn prior, and that card is really, really, really good. I learned that from testing with with Doc. So Dr. BOMD and I did a bunch of testing this week for our lineups. So big shout outs to him. And I think I played someone else, and they ran. I think it was it. I think I played Schmoopy when I tested with you. I saw you played the You played the Murloculas, and I was like, huh. That's a decent card. I was like, all right, I kind of like that. Like taking little things from the people I played against. He didn't play the Warlock deck, but the Warlock deck Nate tested that against me. And I thought that was a super neat deck.
It feels very like it's very similar to the version that's played on ladder. Although I ended up in the version that mine's similar to Vaapad, I think, but like I had to add a second after I played you and doing some test runs. Like I added a second Cataclysm because I was only running one, and I realized like, wow, the deck just doesn't have the juice that it used to. And if you get swarmed, like, and you don't have a way to clear, you're in trouble.
And
it's a swarmy week.
Like I was so worried. I was very worried about Paladin in general going into this. Like I was like, you know what, I'm gonna bring it, and I'm gonna kind of just hope that there's one matchup for it, and then I won't ban it, and you know we'll either have to save the Paladin to try and hit the matchup or whatnot. And it was pretty fortunate to get the one win. I think it could have I think it probably had the legs against the Warlock as well. Because I'm pretty sure that's what I tested. I'm pretty sure that's the deck I tested against you. But anyways, yeah, I really I think that the deck building for this week, and I think even all of the challenges I've looked at this season, have got my gears turning a lot.
Fun!
So I'm excited. I haven't started, much of anything for week 2 besides, the required mages. I was just sitting around. And I was like, all right, you know what? Let's try and make a mage deck and see what happens. But I'm super looking forward to what we have the rest of the way coming, and everything.
Scourge growing is going to be interesting, right? The more and more undeads that you have to add, and it's a big clan, so it's not like you don't have good choices.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the choices are going to slow the format down from what you'd normally see on ladder for sure.
Oh yeah. I never tested an even Death Knight deck. I know. You and Nate both played Death Knight against me.
I was going to ask you about. You went more for like a standard
approach to it.
And I was interested to see what your thought process behind that was versus going with more of like an even version.
I think just maybe because maybe it's funny because I've been playing like a lot of like Death Knight in Wild. I haven't touched really much of standard, but when it comes down to like defaulting to comfort, I tended to lean more towards at least for Unholy. I tended to lean the way of just like a regular like kind of standard type deck. But
Piggyback Construct Quarter was actually kind of cute. Like that was kind of gross.
What I did with oh my gosh, yeah.
Because you're still showing 8 power, right? So like
absolutely, yeah. I looked at that and said, "Oh, that's a nice little combo. Like, I don't have to kill the egg because I can do it with the 4/1 and keep. I mean, maybe it's more correct to do it with the egg because I'm adding the extra power, but or whatever.
Well, it worked.
It worked.
It did work. It did work.
That last game just felt like a blowout, and there was not much. He did have the Bear-off Shield Slam clear.
He had a Shield Shatter in hand. If he got Frozen Buckler.
If he got Buckler, that would have been extreme. It would have been tough. I at least had the Astrolors. So at that point, I'm just hoping to kind of play for my last Construct Quarter, for my last couple of Construct Quarter triggers, and looking for like my top end med, like maybe hopefully get like medic and stuff like that. I think overall, I was very happy with the DK deck. I didn't initially have it in my final lineup until like about last minute because I was gonna run an imp. I was gonna run an imp lock, like kind of a demon imp lock.
Imp lock looked strong.
Yeah, and I just decided to throw the DK in almost as like ban fodder because I really like that priest. I really like that priest deck. It definitely felt. I was like, man, this is. For that one, I just took the deck that's been played on ladder and just kind of tweaked it for the challenge. Yeah. I'm also glad that that I went back to look at my decks because initially when I started this, I was missing corrupts in some decks. I didn't scale I had a Renatholite deck I didn't scale. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me and Vaapad on as the show match. This is a blast. Yeah. I'm looking forward to. I'm looking back to seeing, going back and seeing what I missed in the episode, and then watching this back to get hear the commentators' feedback on the gameplay.
Oh, fun! Yeah, it should be. It'll be posted by tomorrow, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. So thank you guys.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Much.
Well, congrats again on your week one sweep. Very, very cool. It's a nice way to finish off the first week. And
absolutely.
Before we call it an evening, any shout outs you have, or would you like to share your socials where people can find your your content or your streams or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. It'll probably be easier if I go to the channel to type my Twitch out.
I've got them up on the screen actually.
Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. So my Twitch channel is twitch.tv/AzaleaAkari VT. So tomorrow, as it is Hearthstone's 9th anniversary, woohoo! Well, technically today, at least East Coast time for me and Schmoopy, it is 3:11. So Hearthstone's 9th anniversary, and I will be playing you guys. They showed a little bit of our practice. I will be playing my favorite deck for each of the 9 years prior, from 2014 to 2022, playing my favorite deck and seeing if I can get a win with every single one of them on Wild Ladder. So that'll be interesting. Cool. There's some bangers in there.
You can do it, man. You can do it.
Oh yeah,
I believe in you.
Absolutely, it's gonna be a blast.
Gotta love that Dragon Priest.
Oh, the Dragon Priest. Yeah, Dragon Priest is great. Yeah, that was a deck I played back in the day.
Just cue a pirate rogue, and I'm sure you can scam him somehow. It's just what happens to pirate rogue somehow.
I don't know. I am worried about the hyper aggressiveness of ladder with some of my decks, but we'll see what happens. And yeah, I mean, shout outs to everybody who did practice with me for testing. Nate, Schmoopy, both who are here. Dr. BOMD. I tested with someone else in the Discord. I believe it was Eon for a couple of games, and Jules as well. He and I unfortunately didn't get to have matches, but we got to talk deck building and discuss our ideas for the week. Yeah, Cursed when the servers went down was when I wanted to test.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was brutal. But yeah, that's all I got for shout outs.
Yeah, well, congratulations once more on your week one win, and thank you again for letting us showcase your and Vaapad's match. It was a great one to cast, and I'm really excited for you to get to look back on it here shortly.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, friends. Well, that is a wrap for us. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We appreciate you spending your Friday evening with us. Our goal, of course, is to stream a match each week after the podcast. So hopefully y'all be able to tune in. That being said, thanks again, and we'll see you next week on another episode of
Born to be Wild.